Hey everybody, this is Daniel with the Bottle of Some Truth, and I can't wait to get into this audio because I'm going to be fair to Hillary and go over all of what she said, but then we're going to break down why this proves that this just shows why she can't get millennials right here, and why millennials were right to distrust Hillary. And then let's go over also, I want to touch on this Vox article that's just absolute nonsense. So Hillary did a speech. Okay, this is why she was still running against Bernie Sanders. And she's talking about running against him and the people who support Bernie. This is a fundraiser that was done by Beatrice Welters, the former U.S. ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago, and her husband, Anthony Welters, the executive chairman of an investment consulting firm founded by former Clinton aide Cheryl Mills. Go ahead and roll your eyes. I feel you. Now, let's be fair to Hillary, because this is leaked. It was leaked by a conservative blog that's run by a Republican communications strategist, but that doesn't change the nature of what Hillary said. We stay focused on what she said, because we're not going to attack people. We're going to attack ideas and comments. So let's read the first part of what Hillary said. I'm going to read it. That way you can do stuff while you're listening to me, and then let's break it down. She says, it's important to recognize what's going on in this election. Everyone who's ever been in an election that I'm aware of is quite bewildered that there's a strain of, on the one hand, the kind of populist, nationalist, xenophobic, discriminatory kind of approach that we hear too much of from the Republican candidates. Let's pause right here. If you're bewildered as to the Republicans being populist, nationalist, xenophobic, discriminatory, I don't understand. You're not paying attention? We know why they're like that. It's the Southern strategy, which two of the past Republican Party heads admitted to doing. The Southern strategy was a racist strategy where the Republican Party appealed to the racist feelings of their base in order to win against Democrats. We know this. It's proven. So, Hillary, if you're around people who don't understand where this came from and how the soil was fertilized and cultivated so that Donald Trump could rise up from it, then that worries me already with you wanting to be president of the United States. But I move on. And on the other side, there's just a deep desire to believe that we can have free college, free healthcare, that what we've done hasn't gone far enough, and that we just need to, go as far as, Scandinavia, whatever that means, and half the people don't know what that means. This is the kind of stuff that confirms why she doesn't get millennial voters. This is why we don't like her. This is why we don't trust her. This is why I have a problem with older people who will criticize young voters. And they will say, see, the problem is you millennials, you don't understand how politics really works. And you think that you could just get everything you want. Because they're used to not getting what they want. They're used to being bamboozled and hoodwinked. And we have the internet at our disposal where we can fact check these people in the blink of an eye. You can do a Google search, and in 0.00038 seconds, you can find out whether somebody's telling the truth about something or not. You can fact check your sources. We have websites devoted to that, and we can confirm whether somebody's telling us the truth or not. And they talk about, they just want free stuff. There's that old appeal again. Free college, free health care. That we haven't gone far enough. We haven't. Let's get real about this. You're telling me we can give Israel $38 billion, $3.8 billion over 10 years. We can invest in the Syrian conflict and fund both sides of the war. We could do all these things. We could buy all these weapons. But you're telling me we can't afford free college? I know we can. I've seen the numbers. We can do it. It's just not a priority for the leadership in this country. Okay? There was a study done just recently. I think it was Johns Hopkins that did it. They were talking to non-elected bureaucrats, political leaders, and they found that a lot of these elites who work in government, who are congressional aides, have a disdain for the American people. They don't like us. So, is it any wonder that they disregard the things that we want? Free health care. All I hear from these Republicans and Democrats And Hillary, they talk about we're the greatest country in the world. But we can't provide free health care? She mentioned Scandinavia and the Nordic countries that have the highest happiness rates, that have these things for their people, and they pay more taxes. We're not thinking this stuff is free. We want what we're paying into. It's almost like anytime we, the people, ask for something, we're freeloaders, we're welfare queens, all these negative terms disparaging to us. But when the wealthy want something, oh, it's in the interest of the American people. They're driving economic progress. All these myths and fairy tales that are told to us instead of the truth. And I'm just tired of it. Like, this is the disregard that just epitomizes why people don't support Hillary Clinton. Because these things are possible. This is what the American people want, and it's needed. And it can be done. You got to fight for it. But as we'll see, she just doesn't think it's possible. So a friend of mine, the other day, I'm occupying from the center left to the center right. That's as a friend of hers said. And I don't have much company there. Because it is difficult when you're running to be president and you understand how hard the job is. I don't want to overpromise. I don't want to tell people things that I know we can't do. Now, we know Hillary doesn't really mean that because Hillary says things all the time. Hillary says that she's occupying center left to center right. But last July, right here, she said, I take a backseat to no one when you look at my record in standing up and fighting for progressive values. Didn't she sell herself as the progressive who gets things done? Now she's center left to center right. Another reason that people don't trust you. Right there. And she says she doesn't want to overpromise. Well, she's not this is the lady who promised Citizens United to overturn that. The Republicans are not going to work with her on that. I just don't see that happening. They're not going to give her credit for something. She makes these promises. And so this is Hillary. Bernie says, hey, we're going to shoot for the moon. We're going to negotiate. And if we shoot as high as we can and we negotiate, we'll get something pretty decent. That's Bernie Sanders. He has a history in the Senate of negotiating, okay, and actually getting things done, unlike Donald Trump, who ruins businesses, but I digress. Hillary says, let me put my expectations at the very bottom. And in that way, I won't be disappointed. And that's who I'm supposed to be enthusiastic about for president? That's who I'm supposed to vote for? Nah, I'm good. Let me read the last thing that she said. Some are new to politics completely. They're children of the Great Recession. Recession started by her generation. And they're living in their parents' basement. I don't know if that's supposed to be demeaning or not, but if they're in their parents' basement, it's because they can't afford a place to live, and that's not their choice, because at that age, you want to get out of home. So if they're in their parents' basement, it's because they can't afford a place to stay, which means people weren't hiring, or the jobs are not paying enough, which goes back to Hillary's generation, because they're the ones who are running the companies and have the jobs. It's not my generation that ruined the economy and has let off all these greenhouse gases. It's not my generation that gets us into these frivolous wars that don't have justifications for them. Not my generation that's doing it. It's her generation. Moving on. They feel they got their education and the jobs that are available to them are not all they envision for themselves. Yeah, because we grew up being told, follow your dreams. Go for the degree you want. Get your education. Take out the loans. You'll have a job when you graduate. And we didn't have one. I saw people so desperate after college. I graduated in 2009. So I was in college just as the recession was falling apart. I went to school and got a degree in mass communications, but I went for newspaper because I worked at a newspaper before I went to college. And I watched the newspaper industry die. I watched newspapers that had won Pulitzers close their doors. I watched newspapers like the New York Times scramble to find a way to build a paywall and to pay, otherwise they were going to lose out on revenue. I watched that happen. And I changed my degree, but even then when I graduated, there wasn't money in what I was going to do, and I wanted to get married, so I took a different job. The point here is, a lot of us graduated and the recession just destroyed stuff. And this traces back to policies that the Clintons endorsed, such as ending Glass-Steagall. Moving on. I met with a group of young black millennials today, and one of the women said, none of us feel like we have the job that we should have gotten out of college, and we don't believe the job market is going to give us much of a chance. So that is a mindset that's really affecting their politics. And so if you're feeling like you're consigned to, being a barista or, some other job that doesn't pay a lot and doesn't have some other ladder of opportunity attached to it, then the idea that maybe, just maybe, you could be part of a political revolution is pretty appealing. So I think we should do all we can to be really understanding of that, and should try to do the best we can not to be, a wet blanket on idealism. We want people to be idealistic. We want them to set big goals, but to take what we can achieve now and try to present them as bigger goals. See, this is what I'm talking about. There's this language in here that's almost demeaning depending on how you read it. But I want to read the whole thing because I want to be fair to her. I've heard some audio and they don't include all of it. And I'm going to be fair to Hillary even though I don't agree with her on a lot of stuff. And I'm going to read the whole thing. But I want to touch on this last part because this in a nutshell is why Hillary doesn't get millennials. Because she thinks that millennials, because they can't get good jobs, are just flocking to Bernie. That's not why a lot of people flock to Bernie. They flock to Bernie because he was authentic. He had been saying the same things for decades. He was legitimate. And he was fighting for things that we knew needed to be fought for. Breaking up the big banks, getting money out of politics, health care for all, which the Democrats had the votes for, but Obama and the Democrats didn't have the guts to fight for. They had the votes, but not the guts. All the things that Bernie talked about, taking care of our veterans, it goes on and on and on. Racial injustice. These are things that need to be done. These are principles. These are important issues. And she thinks that we supported Bernie simply because we're upset. This is what people do when they don't understand your thought process. They try to attribute it to some emotional response. Oh, you were just feeling something that day, that's why. Never realizing that you have a better grasp on the facts than they do. The reality is, we understand these issues better than she does, I think. Because we have the internet on our side, we don't have the same blinders that she does, and we understand, we know that she can't be trusted. We know that when it comes to these issues, whether it's the environment, whether it's money out of politics, taking care of our veterans, not regime building, we know that we're right because the facts are on our side. The sad part is she doesn't.